Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the YouTube world. We have a very special live stream today where we talk to YouTube. Let's do this.
vidIQ.
vidIQ.
vidIQ.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to vidIQ. If this is your first time here, we have a YouTube tool and a channel that aims to educate you on your YouTube journey. But we're educating you on a platform that has a lot of questions all of the time. And a lot of you are always wanting to know different things from YouTube. And we finally have somebody joining us today. I am honored and privileged today to be joined by Tom Leung, who is the product manager director. I think I've got the title right there. Welcome, Tom, to the vidIQ audience, and just briefly introduce yourselves and tell us what you do at YouTube.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Rob. It's a pleasure to be on the stream with you. I am a product management director, and what I do is I lead a team that's responsible for a number of products that I think some in the audience may know. That's Creator Studio, the Studio Beta, the Creator Studio mobile apps, the Uploads experience, the channel setup, and YouTube analytics. I think that covers it.
So with those things in mind, ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to go through a couple of ground rules first to ensure we're talking about what Tom is an expert in. So we're not going to be covering today topics like copyright, YouTube partner program, monetization, trust and safety, children's content, and so on. Tom, you're very much in the analytics, data, product side of things, rather than like the policies that occur on YouTube.
That's correct.
Okay, so with that in mind, Tom has told us a little bit about what he does at YouTube, but what some of you may not know, or some of you may very much know, is that Tom is a bit of a YouTube celebrity in himself because he is the host of the YouTube Creator Insider channel. And if you haven't visited this channel before, there's a link in the description. Make sure you do click on it and subscribe because a lot of the things that we're talking about today, Tom and his team reveal on this channel before anybody else, like the insider scoop. So I always like to start these conversations about the channels, Tom. So let's imagine you're a superhero. What is the origin story of Creator Insider and how did it come into existence?
Yeah, it's been a really fun ride. About 3 years ago, Susan, our CEO, was talking to a lot of creators about how we could improve our communications. And a lot of creators were telling her and others at the company, like, the blog is okay and the forums are good, but we want more conversational communications and more frequent communications from YouTube about what's changing in the product, what's launching, why are we making these changes, or when we deprecate features, like can't we get a heads up, those kinds of things. And so she suggested that we experiment with a channel where we said, well, we could use video.
Being similar to vidIQ, it's like you got to practice what you preach sometimes, don't you? Improve it.
Yeah. And so since I work on the Creator Tools team, and my manager is responsible for all creator stuff at YouTube, we said, okay, yeah, let's give it a shot, but let's not promote it officially anywhere. Let's just start it from scratch and see what it's like. And we weren't sure what was going to happen because, in a weird way, yeah, we work on YouTube products every day, but we're like the piano makers. We're not like the pianists. Yeah. So obviously, like, I'm not a professional spokesperson. He is not a professional editor. And we had to kind of like do everything as if, we were just normal people. And it's been a real big learning experience using all of our tools and kind of eating your own dog food, if you will. But it's also been great because a lot of creators have said, hey, they really find the channel valuable. and they're okay that it's pretty informal, and they're okay that we're not super polished, but they like that we're very responsive and try to provide like current information as close to like off the presses. And sometimes we talk about stuff even like before it's launching.
Yeah, so just folks, just to give you a couple of details about the channel itself, the Creator Insider, when I last checked, 162 videos now. So you publish around about, would you say maybe 2 a week on the channel?
Yeah, 1.5 a week, something like that.
180,000 subscribers, so you now have your very own silver play button, which I think you did a reveal on the channel, and 3.2 million views. And I've been a regular subscriber, and I'm usually one of the first to comment on your videos,
Yeah,
Tom.
you are.
Sometimes like I'm just saying, I want to know a bit more about this, or why haven't you done this? But I think you always welcome the feedback. Speaking about, so let's put you in put the creator's hat on now. What has been like your YouTube experience? Like, what surprised you the most? For example, like the work involved, the inspiring comments, or like when a new video goes live. What surprised you about that?
Well, I started at YouTube, and we worked on the channel around the same time. So I didn't have much internal YouTube experience before we started the channel. And I guess it was surprising how hard it was to get it started.
Yeah.
I remember my first experience doing the channel header, and it took me a lot longer than I felt it should have. And now that has actually moved on to my team recently, so we're gonna fix that. But I think there were a lot of little things that like they work, but they just you had to kind of like put more effort into it than maybe I would have liked. But then once we got it set up, I think the second thing was you assume, okay, well, we'll upload it. This is a very large platform. There's 2 billion monthly viewers. And then we were saying, hey, we've got great content. Like, this is very unique stuff. But it was very hard. I mean, we weren't 180,000 subscribers. I remember when we were just like a few hundred.
Yep.
And even just getting a 50 was like, whoa, this is going to be a slog. And I think the biggest things we learned was like how you have to kind of, what was important was that we found our voice. And when we started the channel, we weren't sure what format to do and what style and what types of stuff people wanted. And it's taken us a while to kind of get into that groove. But I will also say it's been super rewarding. It's one of the highlights of my job. Like, it's not in my official job description to work on this channel, but I really enjoy the comments, and especially when you have positive comments and people feel appreciative of the channel, it makes it all worth it. And it's I guess part of the magic of YouTube.
And I'm right in thinking that, as you say, it's not part of your job. This is not in anybody's YouTube job description, is it? You do it on a voluntary basis to, as you say, eat your own dog food, which I think is an incredible thing to do. How many people work on Creator Insider? Because I know there's you, there's Barbara. It sounds like you've got an editor as well. Are you all just sort of chipping in here and then when you can?
Yeah, so there are YouTube channels where there are literally employees and that's their job.
Yeah.
That is not Creator Insider. Creator Insider is actually...
You're talking about YouTube channels here, right? Where there's actual employees, like
the YouTube creators
channel, yeah.
Those guys, like, and you could tell, like, their stuff is like way more produced and like, written and planned, which ours is a little more ad hoc. But yeah, to answer your question, I would say there's probably maybe 6 or 7 kind of like standing volunteers, and then maybe 2 or 3 that help out from time to time. My boss is the editor. He's a VP, and he I think he got the raw end of the deal. As everybody knows, like, shooting, like, it's work, but it's the editing that's just takes a lot more time. And then his administrative business partner, she kind of like coordinates the schedule. My administrative business partner, she helps shoot the video when we're recording. And then people on my team take turns trying to make thumbnails. And then we have another person on my team that pitches in with captions. So everybody does a little bit, and it's a great way to experience the product firsthand. And it also brings a lot more creator empathy into the team.
Yeah.
Because I remember I was in a meeting one time, and they were trying to decide how to analyze some data. And we were like, okay, well, what's the lower tier for channels? And someone was like, oh, maybe 1,000 subs. And I was like, wow, it's really hard to get even 100 subs. And I think that person, they're thinking about the entire platform, where there are channels, as obviously with millions and millions of subs. But until you've been there and you've tried to go from zero, you don't fully appreciate the struggle. And I equate creators with entrepreneurs, and every channel is like a startup, and it's a long slog for a lot of channels. Not every channel is this overnight success, And so that's been a really great learning, and we try and bring that into every meeting we go into, and try and make decisions with that sensitivity and that kind of perspective.
Is there anything that you've learned about the YouTube platform itself as being a video creator? For example, like, we realized that when we pushed out a video that notifications weren't working for us, and that was something that we concentrated and fixed on. Or like videos that didn't perform as well, or comments. Is there a YouTube experience that's helped you almost like bug fix your own content?
Yes. So I think maybe 2 years ago, it was like still in the first year, there was a lot of creator feedback around notifications.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we have a lot of systems that monitor that type of thing. And at that time, the systems were pretty much all green. And so we're like, wow, it's, must be a user error or something like that. And until then, one time we did a Creator Insider upload, and they're like, what's going on? Like, this video has like way lower views than normal. And we're like, did the notifications go out? And because we work here, we're like, let us look in, like, we can access, under the covers a little more.
Yeah.
And my boss insisted that we really drill into it. And, lo and behold, it turned out there was a broader issue, and that turned into a big company-wide priority. And I hope the audience out there now will agree that maybe notifications aren't perfect. Nothing's ever perfect, but I think we're way in a much better place than we were a year ago, and certainly 2 years ago. And so I think that's an example where we literally experienced something that a lot of creators had been talking about, but it sort of wasn't coming through because we were looking at data that was suggesting things were okay. And then other times, like, we've had experiences where, we try a new format, a new topic, and it just does not perform well. And that, in that case, notifications went out, but the audience just isn't as interested.
Yeah.
And so, as an example, the whole news flash thing, which is what I spend most of my time on, which are these weekly, like, 5-minute, here's what's new at YouTube, or here's a bug we know about, and here's a new feature coming out, or whatever. That was just an experiment. We thought we'd do it one time, and in fact, a lot of us were like, oh, but that's so short. People are going to find it like too kind of like superficial. They're going to want a more deep dives. That's why they want to go to Creator Insider. And I think it turns out that that people really like that format in addition to the deep dives. So that's an example where, we were trying out different content ideas, and we still experiment with different ones, as the channel continues to grow.
Final question then on the Creator Insider channel. You've said yourself that you're trying to make it a more casual channel, and one of the ways you do that is through the movie quotes at the end of each of your videos. How did that idea come about? Because people talk about, being uniquely you and creating a unique sort of identity. And what I'm really interested in, first of all, is why that idea came about, and also your audience retention. I'm really interested to know if there's like a big drop off at that point where people think, I've got the information now, I'm not interested in movie quotes, or people stick around for that. That's an interesting insider question I want to know.
They do stick around.
There you go, folks. It's not always about the content. It's always about a bit of fun as well at the end.
Yeah. I mean, I think, so the way it started was my manager is in California and I work from our European engineering office. And so, but because he's the editor, sometimes and we shoot on Fridays, so I'm always like a little bit like ready for the weekend and kind of just open to kid around a little more. And so we started communicating with him through the raw video. Just saying, hey, blah, 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 here's a movie quote for you. And then I think at one point we said, oh, well, what if we put that in an actual video? And we're like, oh no, people are going to be insulted. They're going to say like, how are you doing this? Is like, like belittling our an official channel, blah, blah, blah. But it turns out a lot of people really liked it. And I enjoy doing it because I watched a lot of movies in the 1990s. Most of my movie quotes are from the 90s.
Yeah.
But it's fun. And I love the fact that people like try and guess, and it's a good time.
And I think there's always one commenter who's always jumps in there first, from what I can remember. There's always
one list, one life. One list, one life. That guy.
And that's a great example of like a direct personal connection with the viewer. So even Creator Insider have that technique nailed down. All right, let's move on to the business end of this conversation then, Tom. We're going to talk about the Beta Studio. Now, I remember when I ran another channel, I think I first got introduced to the Beta Studio the back end of 2017, I think. So I think I've been aware of it.
You're a brave man.
For almost 2 years now. So my question to you is like, internally, how long has this project been going on for? And what prompted YouTube to decide to start a new studio?
Well, the short answer is about maybe 2.5 years. It depends on like when you count the project starting. The reason why we did Studio Beta was not because we're trying to make people's lives difficult. It's the opposite. It's that the classic studio is built on like 10-year-old technology. And at some point, things just stopped getting supported by, the framework that was developed, years and years ago. It gets, kind of like more and more difficult to maintain. And most importantly, it became harder and harder to add improvements and add new features that we could make available to creators. So like we wanted to do memberships, we wanted to do merchandising, we wanted to improve analytics, and it just kept getting more and more expensive to add stuff. And then we also had like concerns around stability of the classic studio. So we said, we are probably at a point where we can keep this thing limping along for a little bit longer, but it's probably not responsible to stay on it for a long, long time. And therefore, we should probably rebuild the whole thing on new technology that we know is supported, that in the long run will be better for creators and allow us to develop new features faster, have them more reliable. But it will not be an easy journey, because to replace 10 years of product, I mean, we had teams working on that thing for 10 years, and to kind of replace that from scratch, brick by brick, on a new tech stack is not going to be great. It's sort of like rebuilding a plane while it's still flying kind of thing. And I think the good news is I think the most turbulent times are behind us, but we still are trying to, make more and more improvements. And we don't feel like we're done. I don't know if we'll ever feel like we're done, but we feel like we have a lot of work to go before we can remove that beta label.
Yeah.
But I think we're getting closer.
So let's imagine we have a video creator who has never used beta before. They've just not been informed, or they have not clicked the right buttons. I know you're pushing people onto it, but let's just imagine somebody who's been on YouTube for 5 years, never used a new studio. Give them the elevator pitch. So all the people watching now, why should they use the new studio?
You should use the new studio because, number one, the old studio will be gone.
No choice, first of all. Yep.
So if you want your channel to succeed, you should probably get used to the tool set of the future. Number two is that Studio Beta has a lot of things that Classic does not have. It has very, very valuable analytics around CTR, click-through rate, around unique viewers. It has access to features like merchandising. It has improved copyright management features. It has features around improved community management, on and on and on. So it's actually has more powerful tools. And thirdly, it will allow you as a creator to grow long-term with YouTube and give you access to all of the improvements that we're rolling out pretty much once a month. Now, or you can stay on Classic, which not only is going away, has not had a single improvement for, I don't know, years, and is kind of not super reliable, frankly. Classic is a little rickety. So I would encourage anyone who's still on Classic to make the move. And the last thing I would say is the sooner you make the move and you can give us feedback on where you would like it improved, the sooner we can get to that feedback. But if you wait till the day that you can't get access to Classic anymore, then in a way, you've lost this great opportunity to give us feedback on how we could have made it better for you when you still had access to both.
So a nice segue there, Tom, because the next question was going to be, I assume when people first moves onto a beta studio, if you're going to give it a mark out of 10, it might be 2 or 3. And now we're maybe at 5, 6 or 7 as it slowly improves. So I can only assume that the Creative Studio has been massively influenced by user feedback. Is there any particular example of where somebody's feedback or a collective feedback has helped change the way the new studio is being built?
Oh yeah, I mean, basically every quarter we have a whole usually 2-3 weeks of the quarter we spend on what's called a fix-it period, where we take all of the customer feedback, usually from the send feedback link in Studio Beta. We take the most common stuff, and so there's little things. But that make a big difference. So one thing that people kept saying was oh man, I can't preview the video in the video details page, or I can't see the file name in the video details page, or it's really hard for me to access a feature I can't find. And we can make those changes. And then there's bigger ones where I'll give you another example where we built this new video editor. And in it we have support for Nscreens, but it's a new kind of interaction model. And we were planning on removing access to the old Nscreen editor because that's built on the old technology. We need to deprecate it. It's very expensive to maintain. It's always falling over. And so, but we were getting a lot of feedback saying, hey, this new editor, it's not working for me. Don't like it, blah, blah, blah. And so then we said, oh, okay, well, we may have to pay the cost of keeping the classic Nscreen editor around a little longer than expected. And not only that, provide prominent access to it from the new studio while we keep improving the Studio Beta editor. So in short, I would say there's almost nothing that we work on that isn't influenced heavily by creator feedback. Now, we don't reply to every submit feedback thing, but I will tell you, there are humans that read everyone, and then they compile it, and then they say, okay, well, this is the most common one, like latency is another one, like the speed of the web pages loading, especially the first load, especially if you're on Firefox. Like, so, you know, we're working on that too. So everything that we're doing is heavily influenced by it, and we try and prioritize by what we're seeing kind of most commonly come up.
So I'm going to give you a little bit of personal feedback here. I am close. I'm almost ready to convert. I love the dashboard. I think having those little widgets of information, really powerful. The one thing that's going to convince me to fully move over is real-time stats. Now, I know you've heard a lot about this, and you've made it a list of 30 now. The one thing that's still missing for me here is that on the old real-time stats, you can mouse over every single little bar on each video to know how many views you were getting per minute. And that doesn't seem to be there yet. And when you click on a video, it used to show, I think, where the playback was coming from in terms of the device or the country. So I think that's the one thing that's missing for me. If you want me to send me some feedback officially, I will do afterwards. The other thing I think where there's a bit of a disconnect at the moment is the analytics are fantastic in the Creator Studio, but in terms of editing and making changes to your videos, a lot of people do that through the upload screen, and that's one thing that every video creator hits, and they probably do their end screens and their cards during the upload process. And everybody's still most people are still in the classic mode of this. And you recently announced in the Creator Studio that it's now starting to roll out the new, I don't know if we're going to call it the new beta upload flow, but yeah, I was just wondering what you can tell us about that at the moment, because I think that's because once people are forced to use that to upload their videos, then they're naturally going to move into the video editing tools in the new studio as well. Yeah, so on the first question, the real-time data thing is another example where we thought what we had was good enough, and then we heard a lot of feedback that they wanted more. And so we added a lot more. It sounds like you want more. Well, I always want more. I'm a data geek, so yeah.
No. And so I guess one question, just to help me understand that, ask more, is what would you do with that information if it were available to you? Like, why do you need to know that level of granularity?
I guess, to be honest, Tom, I think that's just my own OCD. I just love to know exactly the exact numbers and mousing over it, because I don't know if it's the same for every video creator, but once you upload a video, the initial velocity is so important, and you want to track it as closely as possible. And there have been some videos that we've launched very recently that have really took off in the first hour, and you've almost seen like jumps where it's getting 20 views per minute, and then suddenly it jumps to 80 views per minute, and then suddenly 150 views per minute. And it's really interesting to see that, to try and understand, why did that suddenly happen? But I agree with you. I mean, does everybody want as granular analytics as that? Possibly not.
Yeah, no, I mean, and to be fair, I have had a similar experience, Edley, with just like looking at the real time, the little bar charts as they're updating.
Yeah.
And my kids were watching it one time because I just published something, and they're like, "Oh, is that how many people are watching the video right now?"
Yeah.
And then it would jump a little, and they're like, "Oh!" So I agree with you. I think sometimes that real time stuff is not necessarily for analytical, like, decision making, at the moment, but it does kind of bring the creative process to life. And it's like, so if you could see like, there's 100 people from, Europe or Canada, that would be super cool. And on these machines, or some of them are mobile, some are on desktop, even if you don't necessarily make a decision right away, it does add to some kind of like, it makes it a little bit more kind of like real. So I get that. And so I will share that with the team. Every time, nothing is free in terms of engineering costs. So we always are trading off things. But so that's that with the real time. And as an example, just so it doesn't sound like I'm putting it off, like if we're doing that, then that's the same team that could be working on helping you understand like what your audience is watching outside of your channel. And that might be interesting too, you know? And so that's the trade-offs we're always trying to balance. Now, with regards to uploads, the new uploads experience, that is that's probably going to follow a similar pattern to the studio beta, in that initially it'll just be available to, I think right now it's maybe available to like 1% of studio beta users. If they click on the uploads from the studio beta, they may have it there.
Can I just ask, how is that decided? Is it like a random 1%, or is it like people who are using the studio more than anyone else, or like channels of a certain size?
For the uploads, I would imagine, I don't know the specifics on that one, but I would imagine there are certain channels, like if they're very large and they're monetizing, we may not want them to use the first version right out of the box.
Understandable.
Yeah. So I would imagine it might be sort of random with some exclusions, which is like, oh, well, you know, this is a huge channel. If it doesn't work, like we don't want them to find out. We don't want them to find out the bug. But if a smaller channel is like open to trying new things, we may keep them in the kind of eligibility class. But now, how is it going to roll out? Well, right now it's a very small percentage. It will then, the next phase will be, you know, maybe 10%. And then at some point it'll be just the like open beta, which means like you can still use the classic upload experience, but if you want to try the new thing, you can. And then just like studio beta, you know, when we feel more comfortable, we'll start saying, oh, well, maybe we'll make this the default upload experience and you can still go back to classic, but you have to like maybe click some escape hatch or something. And then finally we'll deprecate classic. But we're at the early days with the uploads flow. I will say I've been using it, and I'm one of the early brave souls, you know, and it's working. And Creator Insider uses it.
Yep.
And it's gotten a lot better in the last month or two. And that's why we probably felt comfortable putting it out to 1%. And ultimately, I feel like it's a much cleaner, more organized flow. And the other thing is that classic uploads flow was built in a very different time for YouTube, you know, where, as an example, now we tell people, hey, you should probably, especially if you're monetizing and you're concerned about, you know, classifiers or anything like that, you should upload as unlisted first and then see how it's going. If anything comes up, try and address it and then flip it to public. But that's not really supported in the classic upload flow. You kind of have to like fight it to make it do that. Yeah. And so what we've said is like, all right, well, so for the new uploads flow, it should represent kind of YouTube as we are and as we envision us going. And it should support these best practices. So they're not like little tricks of the trade, but it's just part of how it works. And so I think we're getting there.
So almost like a checklist to inform you what you should be doing. Is it? If you can't answer any of these questions, that's absolutely fine. Is it like a one screen still, or would it be more like a wizard? Like one of the things that's missing from the classic studio is that I don't think it necessarily links to interactive cards and Nscreens. You have to exit out of the upload process. So almost like these common sense things. I assume those types of things have been brought into the flow.
Yeah. So I think your example of like, wow, you're brought out of Nscreens from the uploads flow, even though most people add the Nscreens during the upload process or at least soon after. I mean, that's an example where Nscreens were developed well after that uploads experience was built. And that uploads experience, nobody even thought about Nscreens when they built that thing. So to answer your question, it'll probably be more of like a stepped experience, like a wizardy kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the second answer to your question about, oh, well, how integrated will Nscreens be? It's actually a more nuanced answer than a quick yes or no. In the long run, yes, that's the way we want to do it. Now, what we're facing is a product development question, which is, okay, do you try and build the, singing and dancing, all bells and all whistles uploads, and then let people use it and get rid of the classic upload? Or do you build like a very solid, slightly improved, but very, very kind of just core workflow of the new uploads, and then you add on the integrated editing experience, and then you add on the advanced like pre-flight check experience. And so we've taken the latter approach, which is let's have a really good new uploads flow that does everything that the old one did and maybe a little bit more. And then over time, let's add in these more big ticket items. But the good news is because the new uploads flow is built on the new tech stack, it will allow us to add those things way faster. And that old uploads flow, we wouldn't be able to do any of that stuff.
So I think what's important for everybody watching today is YouTube is not black and white. I mean, once you have an idea, but there's always going to be like counter ideas of doing it, and ultimately, Tom, you and your team are always trying to create the best workflow for the user. Whereas I want more real-time analytics. A dozen other people probably want better Nscreens integrated into uploads, and so every company has a limited number of resources, and as you say, it's just going to take time for each of those things to get completed. Okay, I'm going to ask you a quick question here. Although the Classic Studio is going away, it's served its purpose very well for a very long time. Is there anything you're personally going to miss from a Classic Studio?
I honestly almost never go back to Classic.
You've moved on.
Initially because, hey, part of my job is to build the Studio Beta. But then, after what? So the first thing that happens when you go to the Studio Beta, if you've never gone, is you're like, whoa, I can't find anything. And then you realize, oh, wait a minute, there's like this channel level, and then there's this video level. And if I want to do anything to a video, I got to select the video first. So if you just go to Studio Beta and you click comments, you're like, hey, how come I can't see just the comments for my channels? Because you're for my video, that's because you're at the channel level. You need to select the video first. So some people figure that out right away. Some people it takes a little while. But once you kind of find your way around, you then stop worrying about Classic, a lot. Now, that said, I still believe, for me, it is easier for me to add Nscreens using the classic Nscreen editor than the new one.
We've got him on video now, folks.
And that's why we have to make it better. And that's why we still have, even if you are using the Studio Beta, there's very convenient access to that classic Nscreen editor. So that one I think I currently miss, but I don't think I'm going to miss it when the new Nscreen editor comes out. And I've been seeing some designs on that one. I think we will. I think people will like it.
I think one of the funny things is YouTube has had the beta studio out now for 18 months, whereas if you go onto another platform such as Facebook and Twitter, they'll just change something all of a sudden in a day, and all of a sudden everyone's like, whoa, what's happened here? Complaints, and then 3 months down the line, everybody's completely forgotten about the old layout. So I assume that's going to happen eventually with the classic versus beta. So that leads me to my final question, and I'm sure you get asked this at least 50 times a day. Has a target date been set for the end of a Classic Studio?
Yes, but it really depends on the performance of the Studio Beta. And we internally are really encouraged and way more pleased than we were a year ago with the Studio Beta. But I also think we still have stuff we want to do to make it even better still. And then when we reach that, let's say out of 1 to 10, let's say we're at a 7, like maybe when we get to an 8, I think it will be time to kind of say, okay, let's make the leap. Now, you asked, has there been a specific date? I would be surprised if people were using Classic as their default experience, by the end of this year. I don't think they will be.
Yeah, you preempted my next question there. Is it going to still exist by the end of 2019?
Maybe parts of it will still be accessible through Studio Beta if there's things that we're still working on, like, maybe the classic Nscreen editor will still be around at the end of the year. But that really depends on whether we think we have a comparable or ideally better alternative natively built in Studio, in the new Studio Beta. But in terms of Classic, I would, anyone who's spending time learning Classic, I don't think that's a good use of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you report bugs about Classic, they don't really get prioritized because we know it's sort of obsolete.
Yeah. And what last question here? Often when you do decommission tools, you will give like a banner warning. And I assume you're going to do that the same with the Creator Studios. I think, for example, annotations, you give like a 6-week lead time, like they're going to be disappearing then. And I assume with a beta studio, you'd probably be giving them a month or two's warning before something drastic happens there.
Yeah. I think we've been putting all kinds of notifications that, hey, Classic will be going away this year.
Yeah, you've been using little push techniques, but not the big guillotine just yet.
Yeah, and I think you'll see us kind of dial it up a little bit every month. I think the big milestone will be when we remove the escape hatch from Studio Beta into Classic. And we will definitely be very clear when that is going away. That's not going to happen in the next couple of months for sure. But it will happen. And I would not be surprised if it happens, towards the end of this year.
There you are, folks. That's your early encouragement to transition to the beta studio. All right, I'm going to move on to some more questions within your sphere of influence, Tom. The first one I'm going to look at here, very briefly, YouTube tags. It's been a staple of the YouTube platform for a decade now. So my question I'm going to ask you now is, YouTube tags, are they important for search, discovery, and SEO?
I would say they are way less important than many creators believe, probably most creators believe. It's possible in the past they may have been more important.
That was my next question. Did they used to be important in the past?
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. I've only been at YouTube for 3 years, so. But certainly since I've been here, they are helpful, like sometimes with like misspellings or, a little bit with search, but honestly, like the title and the description are way more useful for that kind of thing. So it pains me sometimes to see creators spending like so much time on tags, but not that much time on the thumbnail, not that much time on the title or the description or the video itself, which ultimately is the most important thing. So to answer your question, like, they add some value.
So I've done a bit of testing on this. I'm in a general agreement now. So what I would say to YouTube is perhaps it's time to either rename or widely communicate tags for what they do today. For example, if people go to the Creator Studio, there's a video on there from 3 years ago that says that our algorithm will look at the tags to help you, and that sounds as if it's not necessarily as true today. Like description, titles are much more important, and the fact that you have a box where you can put in 500 characters worth of tags seems to emphasize the importance quite a bit, and like a huge box. And my philosophy is always, if you're going to give me something to fill, I'm going to fill it with as much as possible, believing that will give me some advantage in search and discovery. So just a little bit of feedback there, but I agree that tags are losing their importance, and certainly thumbnails and titles are a lot more important these days. Okay,
thank you for that feedback. I actually agree with you.
Yeah.
on the product should try and help clarify the relative importance or less importance of tags. And I think in the new uploads experience, you'll see that.
Okay, I have a quick fire round now. We have been asking our community all week on some of the general things. If you don't know the answer, can't tell us, that's fine, just let us know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to just go through a list of things very quickly, Tom, and let us know what YouTube has for us here. A/B thumbnail testing. Is it happening and when?
Oh, that's not an easy, that's not a simple
Are we going to have a
answer.
nuanced answer here?
Yes. I would say that we have been doing research in this area, and we've been doing some small scale testing, like not even 1%, but just like a handful of creators. And the results are encouraging. And so, you know, it's hard to say in product development, especially when it's really early, like if something's actually going to make it all the way. A lot of features we develop and test, they don't make it all the way because we learn that there's some issues with it, or the customer, it doesn't add as much value as we thought it would. So short answer is it is in active exploration. But the caveat is a lot of things are in active exploration, and so, you know, maybe only, you know, a third of those things make it to, you know, broad production.
Yeah.
But I personally would love to see it, and I'm hopeful that that project makes it out all the way.
And to briefly explain to folks, someone who's asking what is A/B testing. So you can see two people on screen now. You could either choose me or Tom as a thumbnail, or maybe they're both running at the same time and it shows a thumbnail to a certain viewers and another one to another one. I mean, there's many ways it could work, but that's essentially what A/B testing is. Impressions and click-through rate. Is it coming to the mobile app?
Oh, the mobile. Yes. Yes, I hear your question. Here's what I would say. We have been very focused on making the studio beta as good as we can. That's the same organization that also is responsible for the mobile app.
Yeah.
I do anticipate that towards the end of this year, you'll start to see us be able to spend more of our resources on the mobile app, and certainly next year. And one of the things we would like to do is make that mobile app take some of the best things from the desktop web experience and bring it to the native mobile experience. And I think, like as an example, one of the best features of Studio Beta, which frankly should have been in my elevator pitch, is the snapshot card, which is the card that summarizes your last video's performance.
Everybody loves that.
Right?
Fantastic tool, yeah.
Love
really
that
good.
thing. And it compares how it's doing to other videos at exactly the same number of minutes post-upload. It has a little leaderboard. Now, you could argue, like, well, why isn't that on the darn mobile app? Like, that seems like a perfect mobile feature. And so, to answer your question, I think it's only a matter of time before impressions and that kind of stuff comes to mobile. It's just a question of when. I would imagine Snapshot may have a better chance this year, but we'll see.
Yeah, when I upload a video, I'm looking at the real-time stats for 3 hours, and then all of a sudden it's whoosh, look at the snapshot of a video once we get the data. Just following on then, so I assume this may be the similar answer to many questions about the Studio app. Will there ever be a way to insert cards and Nscreens in the mobile app?
I think that's...
This comes from like there's a lot of creators who are actually just mobile only creators. They do everything on a mobile device, and so they're maybe deprived of these potential tools.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I would also say that when it comes to the mobile app, I think we're going to prioritize things that we imagine creators have to do on the go. And you could argue like, hey, maybe they would add Nscreens on the go, but they would definitely want to check their analytics on the go. They would most likely want to maybe engage more productively with comments on the go. And they may also want to be alerted and know about any issues with their channel on the go. And I would probably prioritize those types of things before mobile end screen insertion. But in the long run, yeah, to your point, for the mobile first creators, our vision would be to enable them to do as much as possible straight from the phone.
One here about comments. Why can't we simply, with one click, delete all comments held for a review? So I think that's almost like trying to remove spam and everything in one click.
Yeah. I was on Twitter, and I think Roberto was saying that too, Roberto Blake. I have asked for the same exact feature because on Creator Insider, there's so many, and you just scan it and you're like, yeah, there's no way I don't want to approve these, but I don't want to manually click through. Like, it's very annoying. So I think that will happen. The challenge there is that the team that owns comments, like, they have a lot of other stuff going on. They want to improve the viewer experience for comments. They want to improve the quality of the spam filter. They want to make it more easy for people to find kind of relevant comments. So, but I agree with you. That would be a great feature. And it does align with one of the Studio Beta's missions, which is to really make your very common critical, what we call critical user journeys, as easy as possible. And sort of managing your comments and clearing out things so that you can have everything neat and tidy. It makes perfect sense. So I'm personally advocating for that too. There's basically, here's how it works. At the end of every quarter, we plan next quarter's investments. And there's a list that's like this long. And then we have engineering resources for that much. Yeah. And so there's always this debate, and I was just in a very intense meeting about another feature, and hopefully we'll get through the most important ones. And ultimately, we try to pick the ones that we think will have the biggest impact and most positive impact on creators succeeding.
We have a segment here at vidIQ. It doesn't matter how big the company is, the list is always 10 times as big for improvements. Totally. And just following on from comments, some people say that it's not a unified experience for comments, whereby you can get comments from stories and you can get comments from the community tab, and they're not within video comments. Like, I think you can see story comments, but you can't reply to them through the desktop. So people are asking of a way to put all of these comments in one place to better manage them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's where we want to go in the long run. I will tell you this, that the same organization that would do the comment unification is also the one that would do the clear all experience, and also the one that's doing, like, what if you wanted to, some people have said, hey, how come I can't filter all my comments by my subscribers so I can reply to the subscribers, or my oldest subscribers, or my best subscribers? Same team. So quick answer is yes, I think a unified comment experience would be great. I would agree. And we've talked about that. I think it's, again, like, where is it on that list? And is it in the top 10%?
Dislikes are hidden from community posts, which I think is fine from a public perspective, but I, as a video creator, don't know if a community post has more likes and dislikes, so to know that whether I've sent out the right message to my audience. Any reason for that you're aware of? Because we can see likes and dislikes on videos, but not on community posts.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. I'll have to, but I'll share that feedback with the team.
Now let me just see what else I've got here. Do subtitles and captions contribute to search and discovery? We've already talked about tags, but what about captions?
I would say, I think they help. It's always hard to quantify how much.
People like want a percentage, don't they? Just how much something contributes.
Here's what I will tell you. When you think about search and discovery, what we ultimately are optimizing for is a great viewer experience. And if you could argue that having captions, especially if there are the viewers on their mobile phone and they're scrolling through their home feed on YouTube and they see the autoplay
Yeah.
If it has very good captions, it will likely result in more, it will be more likely for the viewer to watch that video and watch it longer. And to us, that is evidence that the viewer is having good experience. And therefore, that video should be promoted more than another video that is identical, but for the fact that it doesn't have captions. I mean, that's like a artificial example. But so short answer is, I think it does help. But when it comes to search and discovery, here's a rule of thumb: do the right thing for the viewer, and we will promote videos that do the best thing for the viewer.
And the final one here, Tom, I think you've negotiated this list of demands very well so far. A kind of like a viewer profile. So it might be showing, we can see a list of who's subscribed to the channel. That's pretty much a new tool on the widget. But maybe showing how many videos they've watched on the channel, how many comments they've posted on the channel. So it kind of gives you an idea of who your biggest fans are potentially on a person's channel.
Really cool idea. There's not a simple answer on this one because it's not clear that the viewer would be comfortable with the creator seeing that about them.
Okay, yeah.
So you'd have to make sure that the viewer is giving permission for us to share that, or we'd have to find a way to aggregate and say, maybe we couldn't say this subscriber watched 6 times, but we could say, oh, out of all of your subscribers, this percentage are, watching every upload you have, and then this percentage is like kind of casual, and every now and then this percentage is like very rare. Maybe that's something we could do to kind of give you a sense of the overall health of the audience or the intensity of their subscription in a way. But like when it comes down to the individual viewer, I think we were really careful about protecting their privacy and the trust that they have in YouTube, because in the long run, like that's good for creators too, to continue to attract all these viewers.
So there's our list there, Tom, and we can expect all of these ready by Monday. Would that be like 9
a.m.
9 a.m. folks, there you are. Expect a video on Creators Insiders all about that. Tom, it has been an absolute honor and a privilege. I just want to end with this. Can you think up of a very quick movie quote for our audience to see if anybody can get it in the chat with a couple of minutes we have remaining?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Here we go.
So this movie is from the 1990s, and here's the scene. There's a leader of a country, and he is contemplating a very difficult decision, a foreign policy decision, and he says to his key advisor, like, "Hey, this is ridiculous. We need to do something. We need to take some more action." And then the chief of staff says, "Well, I'm not sure what course of action you suggest." And then the president says, "Well, the course of action that I'd suggest is a course of action I can't suggest." And then the chief of staff says, "I'm going to have to think about that." So that's
wow, it sounds like you have 1,000 of these stored up in your heads. Okay, so here are the answers that are coming through, Tom. Tell me when to stop. Schindler's List, Independence Day, Born on the 4th of July, Enemy of the State, Clear and Present Danger.
Clear and Present Danger.
There we go. I think it was Leron, our moderator, who was the first one to get it. I'm going to just do a very quick one here. It's super simple, again from the 1990s, and the quote is simply, "Welcome to Earth." Somebody should get that in like a matter of seconds.
What's that?
Star
E.T.?
Wars. It's not Star Wars.
E.T.?
Mars Attacks. E.T. No. Independence Day. Thank you very much. It's when Will Smith has like a dogfight and then he punches the alien in the face and says, "Welcome to Earth."
Oh, I don't think I've seen. That's like one of the only 90s movies I haven't seen.
You need to, just for it's just fun in its own ridiculous way.
Love it.
Anyway, Tom, thank you very much for your time. We really do appreciate it. And everybody, check out the Creator Insider channel because Tom has and the team have lots of fantastic information every single week. Not only the news flashes, which do go beyond the tools. Tom, you do sometimes touch on the other topics. And we do, like, you go into deep depth on some of the tools that have been released to get a good insider look. And of course, thank you as always for helping to create a platform which allows people like myself who've turned this into a career when I never thought I'd be able to, and for you and your team to build a channel of 100,000 subscribers and influence millions of viewers. I think we should all be very thankful for the platform that we have here that allows me in Vancouver to talk to somebody in Switzerland, to hundreds of people who are watching this now. And I think that I always try and, whenever there's an issue with YouTube, I always try and step back and say, well, where would we be without YouTube? And I think for a lot of people, it would be a less informed, entertained place.
Well, thank you. It's a privilege to be on the show, and it's a privilege to work on tools that so many creators use and rely on. And our hope is to keep making them better so that creators can reach their full potential and reach and have their voices heard as broadly as possible.
If you enjoyed this live stream, everyone, don't make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and download vidIQ as a supplement to all of the YouTube tools that you have at your disposal. We will see you next week. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your video making day. Bye